All right, everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar here today. I'm excited to share you guys a completely unique system for setting up a bulletproof estate plan. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, something to keep in mind is just because an estate planning system that I'm about to share to you is quick and easy, it doesn't mean you're sacrificing anything from all. And we're not cutting any corners here, guys, far from it. It's just that my company, Royal Legal Solutions, specifically set out to develop an estate planning system it's completely painless and easy to modify, which I know for a lot of people out there, you should be having a sigh of relief right now. Because once it's done, it never becomes obsolete or out of date. You can set up your estate plan today and it'll make sure your children are properly cared for by the person you've selected to watch over them in the event that something happens to you. And they'll receive your money in a way that makes sense. And what I mean by this is you can now rest easy knowing that the same protection you put in place to safeguard your assets during your lifetime will remain intact at the time of your death. A continuum, if you will, of your protection for you, your loved ones, and your legacy. And that means you don't have to worry about your assets getting tied up in probate court, exposed, for all the world to see, because that's part of the public record if that happens. Or you also don't have to worry about your property falling into arrears and disrepair because no one was allowed to make payments on the mortgages, the insurance, the utilities, etc., while it's caught up inside of the probate court. Ownership of your assets can and will seamlessly transfer to your heirs, just like you intended. And it can be a really costly mistake because for people who have real estate, for things to get caught up in probate, having a solid estate plan in place is what enables you to make the wealth that you spent years building pass down to your legacy. Whether that's your family, your friends, or your favorite charitable causes, whatever the case may be. If you're on this webinar, it's probably because you know you need to get your estate plan squared away. Maybe you got confused figuring out what exactly you needed to do, or you found yourself thinking it to be really unpleasant experience, or maybe it just feels like yet another legal item you need to keep track of and follow up on throughout the year. That's what most people actually tell me when they say, hey, this is why I haven't done this before, even though I know that I should have done this earlier. Just by a quick show of hands for you guys, how many of you attending this webinar just wish you could check your estate planning off your list and never have to think about it again? And I'm betting everybody on here is raising their hands right now. And that's a good thing, because by the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you a way to have your estate plan done once and for all, and you'll know it's done right. And the best part is, guys, is we can get this done for you in 30 minutes of your time, right? So this is a very painless process to just get it one and done. Does that sound like something that you guys want to know more about? Because if you do, let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, the system I'm going to share today is nothing at all like you've ever seen before. It's called the Royal Protection System, and it's hands down the #1 way not only to protect your wealth, but also create a foundation that maintains itself without having to manage it year after year. You can get fully protected today and never have to worry about leaving this important task undone. And when you do this right and do it quickly and efficiently the first time, you'll never have to touch or worry about it again. I don't know about you, but when there's important business that I haven't taken care of, I personally feel uneasy. So for me, this is really about creating a peace of mind that starts with knowing my most important business is handled, that I'm covered, that everything's done, and that it's done right. Now, I'm sure some of you have looked into setting up an estate plan before, and let me guess, not only was the subject matter confusing, but you're probably annoyed by all the conflicting information out there, or maybe you have an estate plan that's become outdated, and that happens way more often than most people even realize. If you guys haven't been diligent about the way that you've been transferring assets and making sure everything is transferred into your estate plan, it is outdated. It is something that is not going to be effective for you. If anything in your life, major events have changed with your family, your children, your parents, who you want to take after your children, all of these things that happen in your life, all the time, and they're outside of your control, your estate plan is outdated. At Royal Legal Solutions, we get calls all the time from people who want to protect their family and their legacy. And in some cases, they tell me and my staff that they search for these kinds of solutions for years before they heard me on a podcast or one of the articles I've written, or on one of these webinars. And the good news is, if your goal is to build wealth that keeps working for you even after you die, you're in luck. And I made this webinar to show you exactly what steps to take, no matter where you live or where you own assets. For those of you who choose to implement the Royal Protection System from Royal Legal Solutions, your assets will be fully protected both during your lifetime and after you die, and it won't cost you an arm and a leg. That's right, estate planning is not just for the wealthy, it's for everybody. Okay, so why does every single person, especially of those of you who are parents, need an estate plan? And simply put, it's because of all the legal proceedings that are involved when you die, the biggest one of which is something called probate. And I'm sure you've heard of people fighting over someone's inheritance or talking about assets that were caught up in the legal system, quote unquote. And what they were referring to is commonly known as the hells of probate. And it's what happens to your assets if you pass away without having a proper estate plan in effect. And it's not pretty. But don't worry, you can strategically sidestep frivolous claims made against your estate by strange family members or complete strangers, or whoever the case may be, so that your wealth transfers directly to the people you care about most. The Royal Protection System, which is available to any client of Royal Legal Solutions, doesn't just make the entire process painless. It protects your assets from frivolous claims both during your life and after you die. It literally safeguards your assets all the way through, guys. So it's the one solution that's out there that really fully protects you from what you really care about, which is not just your money for your own personal life, but also for what you care about is the people that are going to survive after you. That's your legacy. By the way, how many of you just hearing about the estate planning for the first time are just looking into it? Is that a number of us here? And that's okay, right? There's a good mix of everybody joining here today, and I think it's great for everybody to get exposure to this. And the reason I ask is because most people who are new or have somehow managed to be lucky so far in dealing with a family member's passing, they just aren't familiar with the kind of pain that results from not having an estate plan in place. Most of them assume everything will go smoothly, and that's something that we actually hear, all the time, right? But here's a reality check. For the tiny percentage of people who've handled an estate without estate planning, where nothing terrible happened, those extremely lucky individuals really dodged some bullets. For starters, they dodged frivolous claims and challenges. They also dodged getting caught up in the legal proceeding that would have prevented them from taking care of the deceased children and loved ones. In addition, they dodged the assets becoming quote unquote spoiled. And by this, I mean something like the house burning down while nobody had authority to make insurance payments because the property was tied up in probate. Not to mention, they also dodged thousands and thousands of dollars in attorney's fees. This is huge because even in the best case scenario, you're looking at months and sometimes a year or more of legal work. Probate is time consuming, it's costly, and it's completely unnecessary. It's provided that you put an effective plan in place, you can completely avoid having to deal with those time-consuming pieces and very costly procedures. So as if this wasn't bad enough, remember, you're paying for all the legal in a probate proceeding work while you're also fighting off creditors and other people that are making frivolous claims. And that's the best case scenario when there's no estate plan in place. For the miserable majority, the ones who aren't extremely lucky and didn't dodge bullets, they had to stand by and watch helplessly as money intended for their children just evaporated in a slow boiling stew of attorney's fees, asset spoliation, settlements to distant relatives and creditors, and sometimes even random strangers, all claiming the deceased owed them money. It's one of those things that seems inconceivable while you're alive, but when you die, people come out of the woodwork to lay claim to anything that isn't nailed down. It's just human nature, really. It doesn't take much for people and even close friends to convince themselves they're owed something in your absence. I mean, remember, you are their friend. They don't really care about everybody else. You might not want to believe this is true, but it is very much the way people actually work time and time again. And believe me, I've seen this happen far too many times, where the people who suffer the most are the survivors, the kids and the loved ones who would have been nicely provided for if they had only been protected. And that's why estate planning is absolutely essential. Okay, so what does a good estate plan look like? A good estate plan will sidestep outrageous legal fees and put an end to frivolous claims filed in your absence. When you leverage the royal protection system to put your estate plan in place, you strategically sidestep the biggest threats to your legacy security. You're preemptively stopping the attorney fees your estate would incur if it went to probate. Again, we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars, and there's just no good reason to pay. And you're building a firewall to stop all the money grubbers who show up angling to claim what they think should be their slice of your pie. And remember, they're pulling these antics when your loved ones are the most vulnerable. Best of all, by using the royal protection system, you're actively ensuring that your plans for your legacy will be carried out exactly as you intended. Your children and loved ones will be provided for as you see fit, and your charities of choice will be funded according to your wishes. So do you see why I'm so passionate about this stuff? I mean, estate planning isn't optional. It's a necessity, especially for people who own real estate, because you have more at risk than most people, and far too often, real estate holdings are easy to identify and file claims against. By the end of the day, it's all about protecting the wealth you've worked so hard to build and grow. I mean, who else should decide how your assets get divvied up after you're gone if it's not you? The state? Don't even get me started. I mean, okay, by quick show of hands, how many of you are beginning to see that for anyone with assets at all, having an estate plan is an absolute necessity? Great. If there's one thing you should take away from the presentation, it's the importance of having a rock-solid estate plan that's up to date. Now, some people think they're protected because they have a will. They think a will should be sufficient, but it's not, guys. Having a will won't help you avoid probate. In fact, let me tell you about a friend of mine who died with a will in place. True story. He thought having more than a will was overkill, and it cost his children dearly. Now, my friend wasn't that, what you normally call rich, right? I mean, he had some assets, roughly about $500,000 in real estate investments, which he used for his retirement income. But he wanted his assets to pass along to his children in the event of his death, and that never happened. Tragically, he lost over $400,000 because he didn't have a living trust in place. I'll touch on a living trust in a couple minutes, but let that number just sink in for a minute. 80% of his wealth vanished after he died. And keep in mind, my friend worked hard to acquire these assets. The properties didn't just fall into his lap. They didn't manage themselves. All that time, money, and effort spent building up his portfolio so he could make sure his kids were all taken care of, and poof, it was gone. What my friend didn't realize is that having a will doesn't help you avoid probate. All of his assets still had to go through the court proceeding, and that's when the onslaught of attacks started. And with a little bad luck, one of his major investments literally went up in smoke, along with the money that was meant to take care of his son and daughter. And what makes this story so tragic is that it didn't have to end this way. My friend just had no idea of how vulnerable he was, and unfortunately, it was his kids who paid the price. Now, there are a lot of people out there who believe they don't need estate planning, and maybe they don't care about their legacy, I don't know. And they're perfectly comfortable letting the state government decide what to do with their wealth when they die, which is, if you don't have a will and you don't have a living trust in place, the state actually makes those decisions for you. What these people don't know is that if the state bureaucrats can take it for themselves, and they actually do this sometimes, guys, they will. Everyone, especially if you own real estate, needs to have an estate plan in place, and particularly if you have children. Personally, I find it really disturbing to even think about leaving a children unprotected when there's an easy solution that eliminates 100% of the risk, and it takes less than 30 minutes to set up, guys. It's really a no-brainer for what to do. Today, even an average person who has or seeks to have an appreciable amount of wealth and wants to keep working, for them after their death, keep that wealth moving, they can protect themselves with these ironclad structures at a very reasonable cost. And in fact, I regularly have clients asked to set up their estate planning even before they embark on on their huge wealth creation that they need to do, because you need it for more than wealth. You need to be sure who is going to take care of your kids and how are they going to use your money for the benefit of their children and not just for their own benefit. And this is very important because just like with your wealth, if you don't have an estate plan in place, the government assumes authority to make decisions regarding your children and your money. And I don't think any of us is okay with that. Before I created the Royal Protection System, high-level estate planning and asset protection was only available to the very wealthy. But now that our client owns millions of dollars worth of real estate, or is just an average homeowner seeking peace of mind, we provide the same elite service. And that's something I'm very proud of. By using my system, everyone has a streamlined way to achieve maximum protection. They no longer have to bank on hope, hoping that they did it correctly using LegalZoom, or hoping their all-purpose lawyer got it right, even though asset protection isn't their specialty. Now, with Royal Legal Solutions protections, and the system we use, there's never a need to sit there with your fingers crossed hoping for the best, because hope is not a strategy. With my system, it's never been easier to protect what you're working to build and grow. Plus, it ensures that in the event of your death, your children will be cared for by the person you choose, and they receive everything they're entitled to, and they receive it when they're supposed to. Yes, you can control when they receive part of your estate, so you're not just dropping a bunch of cash on a grieving loved one. And just as important, you can be certain that whoever you assign to take care of your children doesn't squander the money, because you control what they can and can't spend your money on. So let me just take a quick second here, because I know I mentioned my company, Royal Legal Solutions. The Royal Protection System grew out of that. I created this system specifically to help people who own real estate and people who want to grow their wealth. But let me tell you a little more about me and where I'm coming from. I'm a longtime real estate investor, an entrepreneur, and asset protection attorney. Like many of you, I've worked hard to build my wealth to take care of my loved ones so I can leave a legacy for my family and my charities. I dreamed of achieving financial freedom since I was in actually first grade. I'm not kidding. They asked me what our life would be like growing up, and my response was, we would actually take a limo to the nicest restaurant in all of Texas, and I would have a swimming pool big enough for my 300 friends. It was one of those, funny things that you find as like a letter as a kid when they ask you questions growing up, and I actually found it a few years ago. I know that that's not what most of my friends were thinking about in first grade either. I do know, and that I was an odd kid. The point is that I've done it for myself, and I want to make it easier for others to do the same. So let's just take a quick look here at the Royal Protection System, because up until now, I've mainly focused on why you need an estate plan and how you can make sure it's a good one. But remember, your goal isn't just to have a plan in place to distribute your assets when you die. The goal is to ensure your complete protection, both during your lifetime and after you die. It's that continuum of protection for you, for your loved ones, and your legacy that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. The estate plan is, without question, a key component of this bigger picture. Now, what I'm about to share with you isn't all or nothing. Any one of these components can be put in place individually to suit your specific needs, but you want to at least be thinking about how these pieces work together to protect you. The synergistic relationships at play here that fully protect you, your wealth, and your legacy. It's called the Royal Protection System, and this is how you protect your wealth during your life in a way that seamlessly integrates with your estate plan. So there's 5 steps to cover all of the bases here. The first step in creating elite estate planning is the creation of a living trust. The living trust makes it so that all of your assets completely avoid probate, and that's the court proceeding that we talked about. Step 1 of the Royal Protection, creation of the living trust. With the Royal Protection System, everything we do builds one block of protection on top of the other, so you'll never have to redo anything, ever. Your living trust is a private document. Nobody can find out who owns your trust. It will last you for the rest of your life. So you can create this living trust, and that's the first step. Now, to protect your assets, we move to step 2, and that's pairing your trust with a company structure like an LLC. This is how we ward off lawsuits during a lifetime. What I'll show you in step 3 of the Royal Protection System is how to compartmentalize every asset so you can make it into the smallest pot possible for liability reasons. So up to this point, we've created your trust to give you anonymity, and that's part of your living trust. We've paired your trust with a company structure to protect your assets. We've also saved you a bunch of money on fees and taxes because what we're going to be able to do is streamline everything for an estate planning purpose, which allows you to be able to avoid a lot of the normal fees you would incur in trying to move assets around. And by the way, I want to mention, guys, that plaintiffs' attorneys really hate the system because they can't find out whether or not you own the assets they're targeting. Even if they did, it'd be protected, right? So this is a way to be able to really ward off lawsuits. The only downside is you either have to lump all of the assets into one LLC, which creates a big pot of gold for them to attack, or you end up having to establish one LLC per property or per asset, which can run you, $800 a year per LLC plus all the yearly fees. So in terms of creating the anonymity of your ownership to protect it during your lifetime and ward off those lawsuits, as well as the LLCs needing to come in place to say, hey, even if they do sue, they get very little of them to nothing. You're talking about a high expense with the old way of doing things, which is what we just described. But how many of you think it would be great if you could diversify your assets across different companies without spending a fortune and setting up individual LLCs? And if you just raise your hands, then you're on the right track of thinking what real protection looks like. So let's talk about it. In step 3 of the Royal Protection System, we use a series LLC in combination with anonymity trust. The series LLC applies a parent-child structure. There's one parent company that's filed with the state using one EIN number. The parent can create an unlimited number of children. We call each of these a child series, and each child series acts like an individual LLC in every way, providing the same asset protection as an individual LLC. So a lawsuit against one child series won't affect the other children or the parent. The anonymous trust and the series LLC filing all relate back to Scott Royal Smith Esquire, that's me, at Royal Legal Solutions. Any information about the company or the trust is protected by the attorney-client privilege. So legally, they can't even ask for the information, and we can provide it. The series LLC is a structure that's secure. It's been battle-tested in thousands of lawsuits over the past 20 years, and nobody has even tried to challenge the structure. The laws written about the series LLC are so strong, there's nothing there for a judge to interpret, to even create the case law. There's nothing there for them to really go after. And here's another advantage that many investors are unaware of, is that you can establish a series LLC in many different states and then use it in every state. So, all right, there are 2 more critical steps here that we need to go over. It's step number 4 is incorporating your estate plan. Now, we started out talking about the importance of having an estate plan and why every single investor needs to have one. And as I'm about to show you, estate planning is a key part of the Royal Protection System. By the way, if you currently have an estate plan, I can almost guarantee that it's out of date or incomplete, and that's bad news. The good news is, whether you have one or not, there's a simple solution for creating an estate plan once and making sure it never goes obsolete. You'll never have to update or worry about it unless you want to make a change. And here's how it works. We hold all of your assets inside of the series LLC structure. And then you have your series LLC owned by your living trust as part of your estate plan. The reason for this, as I mentioned earlier, most people aren't just protecting their wealth for themselves. They want to protect it for their legacy and their children, their families, their community, and the charitable causes, people, and the things that they care about most in the world. So it's your estate plan that enables you to do this. Every good estate plan has at least 2 parts, and that's the living trust and the pour-over will. The living trust dictates who gets what. The pour-over will is a simple 1-page will that says anything not put in the living trust, pour it into the living trust and distribute it as stated therein. So the living trust makes it so your assets avoid probate, and instead your assets will pass immediately to your heirs. So we're using a living trust to own the series LLC, so your estate plan never goes obsolete. Assets will flow in and out of the series LLC structure throughout your life as you buy and sell. Meanwhile, your living trust holds ownership of the company, and it never needs to be updated or changed. So is everybody with me so far? Guys, let me know if you're not with me so far. Let's drop a comment into the comment box, or otherwise give a shout out so we can know. Otherwise, let's go to step 5 here, and that's locking down the complete protection. That's using a shell operating company to transact all of your active business. If you really want to up your game to the ultimate protection, where you don't even care about lawsuits anymore because you know you're bulletproof, then you need to set up a shell corporation. And let me be clear, there's absolutely nothing shady about shell corporations. Businesses use them all the time to control liability. Now you can use them too. At Royal Legal Solutions, we refer to our use of the shell corporations as an operating company. The operating company is your face to the world. It's the landlord of your properties, the company that sends emails, signs contracts, and otherwise does all of your business dealings. If anything goes wrong, you won't be exposed to the lawsuit. It falls upon your operating company. In worst case scenario, you end up winding down that operating company and starting a new one. In terms of your overall protection, the Series LLC with the anonymity in place will protect your assets. The operating company protects you personally. Now, I need to make something absolutely crystal clear here. Everything I've just laid out for you, all 5 steps of the Royal Protection System, this is proprietary information for asset protection and estate planning. You're not going to find this anywhere else because it doesn't exist any other place. The whole reason I created the system is because as a real estate investor, I was incredibly frustrated by the fact that there was no comprehensive system available for me to rely on. Something that would cover all of my asset protection and estate planning needs without costing a fortune. Remember, with the Series LLC and Living Trust, all of your assets remain protected and hidden. If you're ever threatened with a lawsuit, hopefully your insurance company will pick up the tab. But if they don't, the lawyers will likely never sue you because at least on paper, it looks like you're not worth the trouble. It doesn't look like you own anything. And even if they did sue, they'd get almost nothing. At most, just a single asset. And that's the beauty of having a Series LLC because it compartmentalizes every asset. So you really compartmentalize any potential losses. Plus, with the shell operating company in place, you stay personally protected along with your assets. And finally, by incorporating the living trust and pour over will in your estate plan, you'll know that you and your assets are fully protected both during your lifetime and upon your death. Your peace of mind comes from knowing your assets will stay protected when they eventually pass along to your legacy. And that's why I built the Royal Protection System. It literally is a compilation of the most advanced strategies built into one simple, proven system that works without costing a fortune. No one else has this. And I don't know of any other asset protection attorney that has the infrastructure in place to support such a system, even if they ran out tomorrow to try to build one. Now, you may be thinking, if such a system, terrific thing exists, why haven't I heard of it before? And that's a fair question. Okay, so, but for starters, this is a system that I created. No one else has it. The asset protection with estate planning is a relatively small niche, especially when it applies to real estate investors, to say the least. So there's only a handful of experts and myself that specialize in this in the entire country. It's an entirely new method to integrate all of these pieces together and tailor them specifically for real estate investors because I'm a real estate investor myself. Now, another thing to keep in mind is, as this is kind of a dirty little secret of legal profession, by the way, guys, is that most attorneys aren't inclined to learn something new unless the circumstances forces them to. They know what they know, so they design their practice to crank out that same information over and over and over again. They may work a ton of billable hours, but they spend little to no time developing new legal services. I'm not saying they're bad people or even bad lawyers. It's just a fact of how that business works. We are what we repeatedly do, though, and that's why most attorneys only have one, specialty they go into. And that's why they don't really understand the gamut of what it takes to really operate businesses. And this point was really hammered home for me during the 8 years I spent doing aggressive litigation work. So I may learning new things and staying ahead of the asset protection curve as it applies to real estate investors, my specialty. And it's how I distinguish myself from the pack and best serve my clients. So unless you've met someone who worked with this very specific method of asset protection estate planning, you've never had the pleasure of learning about it. And now, obviously, we're here today because wealth protection and estate planning is something top of mind for both of us. You're here because you know it's your interest to mitigate risk. The system levels the playing field so that investors, both large and small, can do just that. It puts the law on your side and protects everything you're working to build. It enables your investments to grow into a meaningful legacy many years into the future. And with that in mind, let me spell out for you guys exactly how the Royal Protection System works. Depending on your situation, because this is not a cookie cutter system or a one size fits all, we start by using a living trust in combination with the Series LLC to provide the anonymity and protection. So the Royal Protection system provides customized protection based on your needs. Remember, the series LLC is infinitely scalable and it's very flexible. So it's expandable anywhere in the United States, and it doesn't cost you anything more as it expands. Compare that to the high upfront and yearly costs associated with producing multiple LLCs, and you'll instantly see how it saves you money right out of the gate. Then, again, depending on the level of protection you're looking to achieve, we use estate planning and shell corporations to make it so you're completely immune to lawsuits, judgments, and money grubbers who come out of the woodwork after gone looking for an easy payday at your heirs' expense. Now think about it for a minute. What if you never had to worry about a lawsuit because you were protected? And what if the next time some deranged person was screeching about wanting to sue you, you could just hang up on them? And what if that email you fired off last minute in the haste and anger that you were experiencing at the time, you didn't have to worry about that coming to blow back up on you? And what about if the simple legal strategies you could put in place today could help spare your son or your daughter from the hells of a court proceeding that they don't understand, and all of these other people coming out after their inheritance, essentially, what was meant to protect them when they're in their most vulnerable state? How much value can you attach to that peace of mind, guys? And with the Royal Protection System, you're getting the best asset protection and estate planning available. It's created specifically for real estate investors and serious wealth builders. As a real estate investor, you are 95% guaranteed to be involved in a major lawsuit during your lifetime. This is something I don't think we appreciate enough as investors, knowing that we're constantly interacting and business relationships with people every single day, from the contractors to the tenants to HOAs, etc. Lawsuits are going to happen over enough period of time. And the question is, not if you're going to be sued, but when and what position will you be in when that happens. So you want to be sure that whatever protection you put in place covers you both during your lifetime, like using the Series LLC and anonymity trust to protect and hide your assets, to stave off lawsuits before they're even filed, and importantly, to have an estate plan in place to protect your assets after you die, because that's protecting your legacy. That's protecting the people that you actually care about. And again, that's exactly what the Royal Protection System is designed to do, and that's what it does. By taking this first step today, you'll be fully protected in just a few weeks from now. You'll be getting the top-level asset protection and estate planning that's ironclad. And what you get above and beyond these legal structures is the peace of mind that comes from knowing this very important task is done once and for all. You can check it off your list and forget about it. You're covered. Everything in your life will operate just as it does now. There's no disruption to your business whatsoever. You'll have one bank account, you have one tax ID number for your company. All of your existing insurance gets to remain in place exactly as it does right now. There's no messing around about trying to figure it all out yourself, or working with a local attorney who isn't a real estate investor and in all likelihood isn't up to speed on the latest trends and issues that are threatening your wealth and your legacy. You can rest easy knowing your personalized strategy is being professionally managed by leading experts like ourselves who eat, sleep, and breathe asset protection and estate planning. Our firm is the absolute professional standard for what asset protection management is for real estate investors. The beauty of Royal Protection System is we make it so difficult for people to sue you that it just doesn't happen very often, almost never. In fact, not a single one of my clients who has ever gone to court has lost a lawsuit. And that's how powerful the Royal Protection System really is. Our system practically eliminates the chances of ending up in a courtroom. And if you do fight, I'll fight to win on your behalf, guys. That's my background of a litigation attorney. I make sure that all of my clients have the best information that they're going into any battle they're going to, and I stand with you in that fight. So keep in mind here, guys, what I'm offering for you guys here today is a way for you to become completely protected from the lawsuits that are coming down the pipe at some point in the future. We don't know when or if, when the eventuality of when that can happen. I'm offering you guys some protection from prying eyes for people to know about your wealth is during your life, and a way to be able to have that privacy after you die, that you don't have all of your assets as part of the public record with all of your wishes associated with that. And I'm offering you protection from the frivolous claims that are going to happen upon your death, especially if you have any appreciable amount of wealth. and you get the kind of financial security that only a really good estate plan can provide. And that's the complete wealth protection, as well as the peace of mind that comes from knowing your legacy is safe after you die. If this sounds like something you want to take advantage of, I'd be happy to set up your estate plan for you. And the best way to get started is to schedule a 100% risk-free consultation to discuss your estate plan needs today. Just go to the royallegalsolutions.com/EP to schedule your call. Guys, that's what the link is. It's right here at the bottom of this slide. It's a $150 phone consultation that could save you thousands of dollars in the long run. And during your scheduled call, I'll get a complete understanding of your specific situation and answer any of the questions you may have. At the end of the call, if you're ready to move forward, we'll get the ball rolling so your estate plan is protecting your wealth and your legacy as soon as possible. There's no risk to you at all. You get the ironclad asset protection and estate planning backed by my 100% refund guarantee. And every Royal Legal Solutions client receives unlimited phone and email support for life. If we don't answer your questions or something doesn't match what we agree to at the phone or what you heard from us here, we can confirm any of this by email. You get your money back, guys, if there's no questions asked about it. You just go to the royallegalsolutions.com/EP to schedule your consultation. And guys, these slots do fill up quickly, so schedule your spot now, and you'll be glad that you did. Otherwise, that's all there is to it. So I don't know if we have any questions, but I'd be happy to take those. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. And I really appreciate being a part of this webinar. Again, visit the royallegalsolutions.com/EP to schedule a time to discuss your estate plan. And if you'd like to see some more and other services that we offer, you can always text ROYAL, that's ROYAL, to 474747. You'll see that here at the top of this slide, guys. And that'll give you the top 10 asset protection strategies that everybody needs, but especially real estate investors. So thanks, guys, again, for joining me here today.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott, for the presentation. We do have a question from one of our listeners today, one of our webinar members, rather, participants. How would this coordinate with a self-directed IRA, especially a checkbook IRA, which uses an LLC?
Yeah, so the checkbook control IRAs are fantastic for a couple of key reasons. We set these up and manage these for our clients as well, too, which puts us apart as being a law firm that can actually advise people on IRAs. The checkbook control piece is great because it's for IRA investors who want to control all their IRA transactions themselves, and you use an LLC with that to both give you the control of your IRA as well as to protect your IRA. So if something goes wrong in the investment that you make through your LLC, that they have a lawsuit against that LLC, but they can't go against the full asset value of the IRA. And what you would do in terms of estate planning for that is that you just make your living trust as part of your estate plan the beneficiary of your IRA. Right? So when you die, it'll pay out directly to your estate plan. Your IRA itself is already ERISA protected, so somebody can't sue you and get to the IRA, so you don't need to make it as part of your asset holding company, part of your series LLC. But it's really great news for me to hear that you actually have the LLC in place for the checkbook control with that IRA. One suggestion I would make for you is to look for what's the cheapest custodian that you can get with that. We have relationships with Kingdom Trust that has around $150 to $200 a year in total custodian fees. And if you're doing all the work, you don't have any extra fees, and that's what the checkbook control allows you to do. You might be overpaying for your custodian fees.
All right. Thank you, Scott, for that answer. And thank you, Charles, for your question. If anybody else has any questions, please drop them in the Q&A section and we'll go ahead and get them answered. Okay. We have another question. Is the state where you reside a factor in setting these up? Also, will my tax implication with this, what they're trying to ask is, what would their tax implications be when setting up the series LLC and trust?
Yeah, so this is something for the tax implications that we always work with in conjunction with the CPA. What I can tell you is that what we set up here with the estate planning and the series LLCs doesn't have any negative tax consequences associated with it, right? There's always the ways that are going to be customized to your exact tax situation. This is why we customize it in working with the CPA. But everything that we're doing here and all the benefits that I talked about today are going to be available to you regardless of what you have in the full scope of your planning. In terms of where do your estate plan need to reside, all of the benefits that we talked about here today are available to you no matter in what state that you reside in. We're going to be able to help you if you go ahead and if you call in or go into the royalslegalsolutions.com/EP and schedule a consultation. We can tell you exactly how that would work.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Scott, for the answer. And thank you, Damien, for your question. If anybody else has any final questions, please go ahead and submit them either in the chat box or the Q&A section, and we'll go ahead and get them answered. All righty. I think that might be a wrap for today.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Thomas, for having me on, guys. I really hope that you had an opportunity to text Royal to 474747 and get that top 10 asset protection strategies. That's our ebook. That's our most widely read ebook on asset protection on the entire internet. And guys, if you go to the royallegalsolutions.com/EP, that is the $150 consultation that gives you the customized game plan for what people are asking about today. Like, how would this affect me and where I live? What is the exact strategy I need to be doing with the series LLCs and the operating company, and how does that work for me? And we give you guys that as a blueprint of saying, here's what you can put in place today that's going to make sense, and how can you build that over time as your wealth builds, guys. So it's really a blueprint for exactly what you need to be doing. It's not just like a sales call where we talk to you. We're going to be giving you, here's a step-by-step manual essentially by the end of that call of, as an investor, as somebody with wealth, these are the strategies that we know that have worked the best from all the 2,000 plus clients that we work across the country, protecting over $1.3 billion in assets.
All right. So thanks again, Scott, for coming on. I'm sure our audience appreciate that. And everybody go ahead and check out that website and go ahead and text Royal to 474747 to get that ebook. That'd be it. We'll sign out.
Thanks, guys.
Bye now. All right.